What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bag Zone podcast. It's your host, Noah, coming at you. It's just me this week. Braden had some stuff going on. His sister's getting married. He and Avery, unfortunately, had to put a cat down recently. So they got some personal things they got to work through. So for your IFT prep, it's just me. So I got the preview today. I'm recording this on Wednesday, so heading up tomorrow for the IFT, getting pretty pumped about it. Hopefully this will be a good listen as everyone's driving up to the IFT, whether that's coming from downstate here, a quick trip over from Marquette or Wisconsin or Chicago, or even if you're Scott Stokely coming from, all across the U.S. But so today, just going to get right into the Frisbee with it. Got a little preview, and then I sent out a Q&A to the formerly Combat Guts Frisbee chat. I feel like the name's changed so many times that I don't fully remember what it is in any given moment. But also have some questions, some IFT, some not IFT related, that I'll get into as well. But without further ado, I've got the rosters here pulled up for this year's IFT. It's looking like we're at 16 teams again, which is exactly what we had last year, which is already just like a fantastic start. I know from looking at like how tournaments run in the past, 16 teams is perfect. Like it truly makes it run so much better. The biggest thing that's going to mean this year is that there's not going to be any buys in the tournament. So we should have a nice, easy 4 pools of 4 teams. Everyone gets to play 3 games, and then there's no like top seeds get a bye winners bracket round 1 Saturday afternoon. It also means that some teams in the losers bracket on Sunday will get an extra game as well, because there's not those awkward buys with like 12 or 13 teams. So that's lit. I mean, if I'm just doing the math here, I see a lot. Most teams have 6 players, and 6 times 16. We're already at 96 players. Plus a couple sevenths, and all of a sudden we got over 100 players showing up to this IFT. So that's great. Also, looking at some of the teams, I mean, it feels like this is going to be a special tournament. Like, I know personally, like Adam's playing with us for Wolfpack, so that'll be super exciting. So like, it means a lot to me. But you look at like, you got Boomtown coming back like they always do for the IFT. With the addition of Scott Stokely, which will be super exciting. But like, you've got your Bops, you've got your Wolfpack will be there. Your Monte Carlo, your Whiskey Disc is finally back this tournament. I know they were trying to get together for Wisconsin, but that's going to be another great team, UP Hardwood. But like the biggest thing that I'm seeing when I look at all of these teams is, and I know Brandon and I touched on it in Wisconsin, it's just like how deep Guts Frisbee is at this point. Like, I feel like there's at least 12 teams that could make a deep run, on Saturday into Sunday. Like, even like a thrown together team that we helped with like the Misfits, which is Jared Colvin, Nick Jackson, Mando, Jake Paquette, my buddy Dan. Like, that's a team that can like that. They'll scare someone Saturday afternoon. Like, there's not going to be easy games at this tournament, which is great. Like, I think we're going to see some of the best Frisbee we've ever seen at this tournament. I think we're going to play a bunch. Like, I think there's going to be a bunch of catching that's going on. So it's looking great, just going through a few of the other ones. Shout out now to Lotman's Vineyard, which is now open. That's the old Full Compliance. That's who they're playing under for this tournament. So that's super cool to see. And then the other thing that I want to point out is that we have 2 women's teams that I'm seeing, which is super cool. One of them, BTE. Rachel, who I'm assuming is, let me double check. I think that's the Marquette Rachel. Not fully sure. Some of these don't have last names. But there's Will Blau's girlfriend, Jenny, and then Maddie Juice's daughter, Shelby, as well. And then we've got a second team playing as Wood Nickel, Danielle, Chloe, Emily, Claire, and Allie. So it's been a couple years since we've had 2 women's teams. It's super awesome to see. I know that's certainly something in the sport where we feel like we can keep growing it and getting better at getting more women involved in the sport and keep growing it that way, and not just having people come as spectators, but also participate as well. So, getting into a little bit of predictions real quick. I won't do the classic. I'm just going to pick Wolfpack to win the whole thing, even though I think we have a good shot to. Especially playing with both Varrigans again. Like the O'Malley's magic kind of trickles through, although that's not always the best at the IFT. For anyone who knows the old history with O'Malley's Alley and the IFT, I think the best that they ever finished was either third or fourth. Like, there was just something about that tournament where like they got spooked or would have a bad bracket or wouldn't play well. But we're trying to capture the good parts and hope that Wolfpack Black and Red can, cancel out some of the bad. But Shadowbop, as always, it's their home tournament. I stand by Keweenaw guys always play super, super good at their home tourney. Like, I know Monty's always just an incredibly tough out, and I think it's maybe the last two finals, at least one of the last two finals. I know because Monty lost to Bop in the All Keweenaw final, which was super cool to see in 2023. And then obviously Hardwood won last year. I just don't remember who they played in the final. But Shadowbop to me has to be the favorite. They're keeping their Wisco winning team, and it looks like Steve-O's back. So now you add that great five that they had, and just put in like one of their core players back in the mix. Plus, he's got new dad strength, which we found out in Marquette last year really matters. So I definitely think Bob's coming in as the favorites. Obviously, UP Hardwood is defending champs. We have to put them high up on that list. I think we're all going to remember how good Whiskey Disc was now that they're back. You still got their core four with Tim, Derek, Bert, and Max. And then Rudy and Lucas Jensen are playing with them, and those are two huge pickups. And you want to talk about another team with just no targets. So yeah, I think it's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple upsets this weekend, certainly. But I think I'm calling the shot that we're going to take on Bop in the final after a hard-fought day of getting through teams like Hardwood, Boomtown, Monte Carlo, and even like Roaches too, man. Like, I don't think I've mentioned them yet, but like they're going to be really good. But it's a stacked tournament. I can't wait. I think we're all going to be surprised at where Guts Frisbee is in the Midwest. I think we saw a lot of it in Wisco, and I think with 16 teams, we're going to see it even bigger. So I can't wait for it. I know we've got some exciting announcements too, just to tease a little bit this weekend. So everyone perk up when Donnie's talking, and then come see me this weekend. I've got a flyer about some exciting stuff that's coming up for us as well. But yeah, that's the IFT preview. Like I said again, at this point we're holding at 16 teams. I'm not seeing any chance that we get another one. There's some of like the old Keweenaw guys that I don't see having a team here themselves. I see a few of them playing with Blood and Guts, as they tend to do up there, but I think that'd be the only way we'd get to a 17th. But honestly, 16's perfect. Like, it's going to make for a great bracket. It's super easy to run. I think we're going to see a really smooth weekend, just hoping that the rain holds off on Saturday. But we're going to get into the Q&A now. The biggest thing that I wanted to talk about out of this was ranking each era of Guts from the 60s, 70s. I won't count the 50s. Obviously, the first IFT was 1958. I'm just going to kind of lump that into the 60s, like the early days of Guts Frisbee. Then 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, 10s, and I will include now. And I have no reference material since Braden's not able to do this. He's kind of the technical whiz. So it's just going to be me talking and trying to remember what I'm actually telling myself. So I can't promise it'll be perfect, but I'm going to start at the bottom, and I have to put the 90s dead last. It was the near death of the sport. It's weird because my dad's peak was in the 90s, and some of his buddies, and I know he's got some great stories from world championships in the 90s, and we saw Internationally, that's when Chinese Taipei had their dominance, and Japan had been good in the late '80s. But I mean, we got down to it was like 6 3-man teams at one point for the IFT or something like that. So that was the near death of the sport. As much as there are some fond, brief memories from that, I'm struggling to put it anywhere higher than the bottom. So yeah, I think the '90s is there, and then a little controversially, maybe I think I'm also going to put the aughts in there as well. I'm going to touch on it later because everyone's been sharing the old video that they found of the 2004. I think it was a winners bracket finals game between Breakers, who was a Keweenaw team, like Ron Blau. Who else did I see? Bill Gagne was on that team. Just a lot of heavy two fingers, realistically, which is a Keweenaw staple. But they were playing Kupla in a winners bracket finals, so it was that era, and we were starting to see some teams come around. That's when Boomtown first got their start. If I think back, that was like right before I started playing, or right around when I started playing. So the 50th happened in that window. I think this year's the 67th IFT, if I'm remembering correctly. So that would have been like 2008 or 2009 would have been the 50th. So that was really like the revival of Guts, and when you started to see this next generation picking it up. So the 2000s was getting there a little bit. It was still just like there weren't teams. We didn't quite have the new generation yet. I'm going to touch on movement, but like it wasn't the best defensive era, which really matters to me. So I'm going to be slotting the aughts second from the bottom, just above the 90s. And after this, it gets tough. Like, it gets really tough. There's personal bias involved in this, but I think after that, I'm going to have to go with the 60s next, which sounds weird because that feels like that was, like, the foundation of Guts, like the early days, the wildest times. If you read Wally's book, you'll hear some crazy stories about what the tournaments were like, getting sponsored by beer companies. But I just don't, and having seen a little bit, like the gameplay just wasn't there yet. It was a wild experience. I'm sure it was crazy, but compared to the eras that came after it, I think it lacked a little bit of the Frisbee, even though it had the participation, the parties. But I'm gonna stick with 60s, third from the bottom. After that, I think the list gets a little bit tougher in terms of where to go. I'm torn between the 80s and the 2010s, I think, are next. And I think I'm going to have to go with the 80s. Yeah, let's say the 80s for that one. So I'm going to put the 80s right in the middle. Still a bunch of teams. I know that's really when my dad got into playing, so they were still riding that high of, you'd get 40 teams at the Ski Hill in Marquette and a bunch of teams at the IFT, and you'd get, several hundred to 1,000 people out to watch. So that part of it would have been super cool. I know it was one of the best eras for players. I mean, you talk about that was kind of the heyday of when Kupla started. You had Video Sensations. You had Library Bar in that time period still, I think. I'm missing another Keweenaw team in there. You had Queen City Aces from Marquette, who were a really tough out, and I know they had a lot of defense back in the day. But that was an era of, like, there were 5 or 6 unbelievable teams. You always had great Frisbee to watch. The biggest thing is just it was missing that international component a little bit in the 80s. Japan was somewhat there, for sure. But for me, I think if you just look at that long-term development of where we've come in terms of defensive philosophy especially, I think that's the reason I'm going to put the 2010s just ahead of that. The one thing I will also say is the thumbers back in the 80s. Like, I want those back. Those were fantastic. Now no one can throw from that time period because their arms got shot. But before then, man, it would have been so cool to see all those thumbers flying around. But yeah, I think the biggest thing too with the 2010s is just we saw another dominant stretch of a team. Like, we had Boomtown, who came out and they were like unreal the late aughts, just after the 50th, and then they had a stretch of 7 or 8 years of incredible play. And then you also had, the rise of Appleton in the 2010s where, they completed the calendar sweep of tournaments. They had your just a different level of play. I mean, that Appleton, when they, full Appleton as we call them now with Tanner and Jericho, I think is still probably the best Frisbee team I've ever seen of an actual team. And then the other thing, because I think it snuck into the beginning of the 2010s, was the era where Albuquerque sent their top team to what used to be Worlds over in Sterling Heights. And watching them and Boomtown, which is still probably the best finals I've ever seen. There's one we'll talk about later that might be on the same level as it, but like the level of Frisbee that was played with how good the Albuquerque guys are, like you have to include them in the 2010s era. And then like with Appleton and O'Malley's too, like I would say pound for pound, you could have picked any era where there were four teams that good at any given time. Also, I played in the 2010s, and that matters a lot. Like that's when all my friends started to get into Frisbee. That's where I've got a lot of my core memories of getting into Guts and developing who I was as a player. So I will accept that bias. So 2010s, that would put that in third place. So now top two on the list. I think second, I'm going to go the current decade that we're in. Obviously, we lost a little bit with COVID at the start of 2020. But I think the current era, the sport's growing again. We're in a really good spot with that. If you look at international play, I think that's where we're honestly at the biggest advantage now. You look at players in Thailand who are playing Guts. I know they just recently had a Guts tournament. You look at where Japan's at and the talent that we saw in Australia from Japan 1 and their younger players. You think about Chinese Taipei and that new generation. I know, that younger team was super fun to play against. That was super exciting. So that exchange of Frisbee culture, too, was super cool. And then you look at the stuff that we're doing now. We're seeing Guts discs thrown in Colombia for the first time. I know we've got some other stuff in South America trying to grow a Pan-Am game. So I think by the end of this decade, we're going to look back for global Guts and say this is the best place we've been in a long time. So second, I'm going to put our current decade. Obviously, we're only halfway through, but it's moving in the right direction, and I think we all feel that, and great things are coming. And that means number one is the 70s. I think it pairs perfectly, like the heyday of talent-wise with Guts Frisbee. You get the travel aspect. You look at the Rose Bowl game tournaments that they had in showcases back in the 70s. You think about like the beer sponsorships that they had back in the 70s, which put some money into the sport. You had great teams. You had your library bar. I'm blanking off the top of my head on the team from California's name. And then you also had like the rise of the air races back in that generation, and just getting to watch them play and throw was crazy. And then it was just like the perfect meld of like really good Frisbee with like the party environment, the number of teams, the people involved. I think it just had the best of all worlds. Like if I could take any 5-year stretch of Frisbee to just like plant my team in, I would love to have played in the 70s. So yeah, that's my list. Let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. So I put the 90s at the bottom, and then we went 60s, 90s, 60s, 80s, 10s, current generation 70s. And that is my definitive list for right now of the Guts Frisbee decades. Let me know at the IFT why I'm wrong, or especially if you're an old head, why the 80s were actually way better than I just said that they were. I imagine I'm going to get an earful from my dad on that one, but that's okay. Next question was going to be, what are my personal top 5 songs to listen to on the way to a Guts tournament? And this is the perfect question for the IFT, because when we went up in college, I had an IFT playlist specifically designed to be the length of the drive from Marquette to the fields at the driving park. And this like tournament more than any other one, because like when you live in Marquette, you got time for a few songs, and when you're driving up the day before, like it's not the same energy. But most years in recent history, we've driven up Saturday morning of the IFT, so like our tradition would be like my dad and I would go pick up Braden at like 6:30 in the morning, Like we'd go get donuts and coffee, and then we'd drive up. And so it's like the perfect drive time of like we can talk some frisbee and then lock in the last like launch onward and get some really good tunes in. So number one, "Dancing in the Dark" by Bruce Springsteen, which the only reason it made this list was it is the one of the songs in the background of the '80s archive video, and it just like fits Guts Frisbee so perfectly. Of like it's upbeat, it like makes me reminiscent of where we like used to be as a community, and also we'll see on this list, at least for me, that like rock music, like there's that like '70s and '80s rock, and then you get a little bit into like some '90s grunge. It's like it's the definitive style for Guts Frisbee. It's what feels right. Like modern music sometimes feels weird at Guts. Of like, nah, it's the time that you listen to like your dad rock and just lean into it. Which my number two song, "Reelin' in the Years" from "Can't Buy a Thrill" by Steely Dan, is number two. Which it's one of my like top 10 all time favorite songs to begin with. But there was one Bothwell, the fields between Bothwell and Superior Hills at Marquette practice, where Aiden Claffey asked me to put on this album, and Adam and I fell so in love with it that like we listened to that album every time we played frisbee for like a year. Like the entire album fits perfectly. There's a bunch of great songs on "Can't Buy a Thrill," but "Reelin' in the Years" is number one for me. It gets me really like nostalgic for just a carefree weekend, which is like the mentality I need going into a Guts weekend. So that's number two. Number three, in the same vein of like, listen to the music by the Doobie Brothers. Like it's perfect. It's a perfect song. It fits it perfectly. I can't wait to crack a beer for the first time after hearing it. Like A plus, top notch. Don't even need to say anything else. Fourth on my list, "The Boys Are Back in Town" by Thin Lizzy. Like, talk about a song that just perfectly encapsulates you get to go see all your frisbee friends that you haven't seen in months, you know, to start the season, or 4 or 5 weeks. Like, especially now that I don't live in an area with a bunch of Guts players anymore, there's nothing that gets me more hyped to go see everyone than just hearing some boys are back in town, and like we're gonna get into a little bit of mischief, you know, just like we do at Guts tournaments. So that's fourth on my list. And then I was really torn up about five. It's more of like not driving to a tournament because I haven't happened to yet, but like I think "Lagrange" by ZZ Top could be on there. Of like that just little growl in there is great. The honorable mention is whatever song is in the Desert High Classic video that we talk about all the time, because that song played at Wisco and we like lost our minds. So that song's also another honorable mention. But I went with "Sympathy for the Devil" by the Rolling Stones. A lot of Stones end up on my Guts playlist, but that's that like way back classic rock that just like really hammers home that like, yeah, for the next 6 minutes I'm just thinking about like catching a disc. So that's my list. One more time, we got "Dancing in the Dark," "Reelin' in the Years," "Listen to the Music," "Boys Are Back in Town," "Sympathy for the Devil," and I will shout out "Rock Lobster," which Bert said has to be number one, I guess for his list, because it's not number one on mine. But yeah, I think it'd be super cool if we kind of crowdsourced like the official Bag Zone playlist on Spotify for like Guts tournaments and get everyone's opinions on what we should add. And that way, like the whole Guts community just has the like "We're Driving to the Fields" playlist to throw on and shuffle, and just know you're getting like a tune getting you ready for frisbee. So Brendan and I will work on that. It might not be ready for the IFT, but let's try and get it going for Natties. Second to last question, I queued it up a little bit earlier. Mando wanted me to talk about the movement changes that I've seen from the 2004 IFT compared to now. Like I said, that video's been going around. And just going into it a little bit, Brandon and I might watch it sometime, so I don't want to go too much into the actual specifics of the video. But one thing I will say is the teams are a little bit older, and I've talked to my dad about this, but everything's like 2 to 4 steps with a few exceptions in the wind. So there wasn't a whole lot of spin side, especially looking at like targets that teams were going at. It was a lot more of just forward and backwards. I'd say like base movement. The teams did it super well. Like all those guys have crazy hands. But you were not seeing a whip going back. You were not seeing people square out. Like your ends were flying back every time. It was like traditional movement. The middles were pretty stagnant. Like it wasn't kind of what we do now, where like we want our middle to be someone who can go forward and backwards really well. You see it with Cam, you see it with Hogan, that just like go find the disc guy. It was a little bit more of just like our middle's got really good hands, and we want them to catch the frisbee short if it gets popped. So I noticed that. The other thing with movement that I noticed especially was just like guys do not straighten their hands. Like I swear we saw like 3 traps that weren't called in that thing in just like 5 minutes. But like you watch a lot of bobbling and they're like dino armsing it like this, and it's like I think Boomtown were the ones who really started it. I know that's where I taught it, of like the straight arm, kind of trying to get the frisbee to flatten and take away rotations, which I have a disc right here. So like doing this instead of like this and just popping it back in towards yourself. So like that was the biggest thing on ups, was like they all got super grabby. Like they didn't do the just like hands platter catch the disc. Like think about like Tanner does it all the time. Like Will Blau will do it too. Like it was always like you want to grab it and catch it, but if you're not controlling the disc a bunch, which I didn't really see from them as much as we do now, it just meant that like you saw a couple drops that I don't think we have these days. So those are the biggest things for movement. No one squared ever. Not that there were a lot of flat shots, but like we didn't square. They didn't kind of square in on things like flips the way that we do now, and kind of that short range, long range movement that we talk about and the angles on it. It just seemed a lot more instinctual. And like I said, those guys had great instincts and they made a lot of really great plays, but it seemed like there was less intention than we have these days, I think would be the way that I would put it. They spent a little bit more time arguing, a little bit less time thinking about defensive strategy. And the last question, which I genuinely think is the hardest, because you think this would be great, and then I look at it and I don't have a good answer. Connor Steer proposed, if Guts Frisbee got donated $1 million, how would I spend it? And I genuinely have no idea. I think we'd probably want to put aside part of that for funding for the next like 3 cycles of World Games. I think that'd be something really beneficial if we could actually send all of the best players that the U.S. has to offer without them having to worry about cost, especially for younger players or stuff like that. Like I know with guys who now have families too, like that's a big thing of you got a lot of things that you got to spend money on, and it can't always be an expensive trip for Frisbee. So I think that'd be one thing that would be super cool if we took a little bit of money aside for that. I would also say like take a good chunk for like better videography stuff, whether it's getting official cameras, whether that's setting some of that aside for editors. Like let's get our content better. Right now, with the limited money and resources we have and doing it ourselves, like it's getting better. The guys that record do a great job, but like it'd be super cool if we had a pretty nice tripod that could stream, for Jim Oak to give his awesome commentary on, and we had actual cameras instead of just iPhones for recording game footage, and then we could pay a good editor to put it together. And kind of doll it up a little bit more than we do now, and kind of outsource some of that stuff rather than having to look just internally in the community. And then I think just like discs, a little bit more prize money, not a lot, like still at the same time, Frisbee's a grassroots sport, but like, let's get more discs out there. Honestly, part of the $1 million, Connor, is what I would say is I would buy the mold from the person who currently has it if they would sell it. Because if we could get the Guts Frisbee mold back in the community, I think that would be super cool. It would make discs a lot more affordable long term, because it would just be more of a, we're not looking to make a profit, or if we are, it's a small profit that we can feed back into the game. And then the last bit of it is just like, further community outreach. Can we send, put some money aside to send players to new countries to run camps, or, to new areas of the world where we don't necessarily have a Guts Frisbee impact, and be able to not just rely on, our own pockets to do these things, but let's get a group down to Colombia where they're starting to play Guts. Of like, okay, well, can we pay for 5 people to go down there for an extended weekend and give a clinic, and try and jumpstart the game. So I think that's my answer. I have no dollar figures on that, and if someone really rich wants to start funding us, cool. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are all the questions I had. Like I said before, would love if everyone would check out the podcast. Give it a listen before the IFT comes up. It's a great listen on the drive over. Then, like I said, give yourself 10, 15 minutes to listen to your favorite songs. If you're driving up on Friday, this is a perfect podcast. Uh, Braden, love you, brother. Sad I missed you on this one. Excited for the next one. Um,
You thought, surprise, you saw it was just Noah and thought, thank the Lord, I don't have to listen to fucking Braden this episode. And now you've made it to the end of the video. And guess what? Here I am. Because it's Thursday morning. I got to get to work. But guess what? I had a couple things I wanted to say. Noah, surprise. But I'm getting some stuff in here because I listened through it and I'm editing it. And guess what? I'm adding a little context. So for those of you, for those like 3 people that watch the end of the videos, guess what? Surprise, here I am. First and foremost, the IFT field, there are so many sick teams. There are so many sick teams. I mean, shout out my sister and Hunter. They're getting married. By the time you're listening to this, when will you be listening to this? Well, when you see me at the IFT on Sunday, my sister and her fiance Hunter will be married. So congratulations to those two. Um, but I am upset that I am going to miss a full day of Saturday. It's for a great reason that I'm missing. But the field at this IFT is maybe the deepest that I've competed in terms of skill level. And boy, can I not wait to see what Sunday produces. It's going to be fucking fireworks, dude. And I'm so stoked for that. So I just want to shout out everyone there, especially the 2 female teams. Shout out. I'm sure Rachel had a big part in doing that. And BTE, Noah. Well, actually, no. I'll let Rachel tell you. For those of you who don't know what BTE stands for, but let me just tell you, they've got some really sick shirts that I ordered. I got one. Boy, can I not wait for this shirt. Anyway, shout out BTE. And everyone else in this field. Guess what? You're all nails, dude. I didn't get to say it to everyone's name, but guess what? Nails. All of you, fucking nails. For even just participating in a Frisbee tournament, nails. Fucking nails. Shout out to everyone. I love every single one of you. And I can't wait to see everyone Sunday because it's going to be like muggy and it's going to be hot and it's going to be steamy. Boy, is it going to be good. I cannot wait. Noah just had one thing. There was one Q&A that because I mentally, I don't have time, I can't deep think about things, but there was a question that I could quick fire and give my opinion to. And those were, what are your gut songs that you're listening to? And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Luke McCarthy and I. Shout out Luke. Back in the day, made a Guts playlist, and I don't think Noah knows this. And we haven't added songs to this in forever. I wish I could find when this was made. Sorry, Spotify doesn't give it to me right away, but I don't care. I mean, it's been years. It's been a handful of years since this was made. But I have my list. I've got some songs that I'm fucking jamming out to on the way to a Guts Frisbee tournament or at a Frisbee tournament. I've got a list of songs from this, 6 hours that Luke McCarthy and I put together. Shout out Luke McCarthy. If you want this link to this, Noah, we've already got one made, dude. Like this could just be, like, we've got a Guts playlist. Let's just have people add to it. Anyways, I've got it right here. And I've got 5 songs. I've got my 5 songs that off the rip that I just picked because I liked for certain reasons. Starting off, I have Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue. I mean, you can't go wrong. You know? The intro, you got the... I mean, tell me that doesn't get you just fucking ready to go. I mean, come on, dude. Come on. Kickstart My Heart. Motley Crue has to be number 1. Has to be number 1. There's no other option. For me, Kickstart My Heart. You want any song, fire me up. Give me a little bit of Motley Crue. Just a little bit of it. I just need to hear that intro. I just need to hear the engine revving up. Fire me up the fuck up. Next, keeping it a little old school, I have The Bitch Is Back by Elton John. Just because that song's just got, the bitch is back, dude. Fucking The Bitch Is Back. And if you haven't listened to The Bitch Is Back by Elton John, it's got like, I don't know, The Bitch Is Back. I've got that swagger that like, I am the bitch, and the bitch is fucking back, dude. So watch out. Elton John, great. Next, I've got two new school songs. The first is "The Cold Wind" by Greta Van Fleet. Some of you might get pissed at me because like, oh, you're just listening to Led Zeppelin. It's just shut up. I don't fucking care. Again, if you haven't listened to "The Cold Wind" by Greta Van Fleet, it's got that intro that just it just gets you going. Like it's just got that instrumental that I need to get me pumped up for a Frisbee tournament. So The Cold Wind, Greta Van Fleet is my third song. The fourth song is a little song called Kiwi by Harry Styles. Now I understand. People heard Harry Styles and went, "Oh, Braden, he's a pop singer. He was in that one boy band that was like One Direction or something, and he makes silly girly music." And you need to fucking listen to Kiwi then. If there's one Harry Styles song that you listen to forever, and I'm a big Harry Styles fan. Love me some Harry Styles. He hasn't put up music in a bit. Kind of pissed about that. But it doesn't matter. If there's one Harry Styles song that Guts players need to listen to, it's Kiwi. Kiwi by Harry Styles off his first solo album. And it just like it hits you fucking right off the bat, dude. So Kiwi by Harry Styles, and it just goes the whole time, is my fourth. And the last one is Life in the Fast Lane by the Eagles. I don't really think there's much else that needs to be said other than it's Life in the Fast Lane by the Eagles. Sick, dude. Fucking banger of a song. I mean, like, come on now. It's got that attitude. It's got the swagger that I need for a Guts Frisbee song. It's got that, like, it just has that thing. It has that quality that I'm looking for in a Guts Frisbee song. That's it. So I'm gonna splice you back to Noah. But hey, I cannot fucking wait to see everyone Sunday. I can't wait to. So when you see me Sunday, congratulations, my sister and Hunter. I hope everything goes smoothly because obviously I'm recording this Thursday morning. We've got stuff going on Friday and then Saturday as I'm part of the wedding party. But hey, I can't wait to see everyone Sunday. It's gonna be a fucking blast. But anyways, I'll let Noah take us out. So.
But yeah, we'll be back next week with our IFT recap. And until then, to everyone out there who is not on the Wolfpack, a collective, go get it.